Hi, I'm Carol Owens, and this is Stockbridge Updates. Our last issue came out on Monday. We're taping a little late this time, but that's because attorneys' time is difficult to get and expensive. The last issue was about a big kerfuffle in Stockbridge politics. Usually I am the voice of Stockbridge exceptionalism and love in my town, but we can't do everything perfect all the time. And someone, actually a dear friend, complained to me during the aforementioned kerfuffle that not enough people get involved. Very, very displeased that more people don't get involved. Well, my goodness. We had a select board meeting and 50 people came, and to a meeting usually attended by 0 to 3, 50 was a pretty good number. But, I thought hard about what he said. I don't believe it. I don't believe that people don't care. I don't believe that people don't want to get involved. I don't believe that. I believe that folks don't know a lot about how municipal government works. And you know what? Me, you, all of us avoid what we're not good at. Last time I was over at another friend's house, they said, let's play a game after dinner. And they took out some board game that I'd never seen and never played. And they said, that's okay, we'll explain it. Oh, my God, it was torturous. I couldn't figure out how to play it. I couldn't keep track of the rules. I wanted to go home. And there are some people that feel the same way about government. So Stockbridge Updates is taking on an obligation. We're going to become a government tutorial. And I have to tell you, there's no one that I would have wanted for my first guest more than Jeremia Pollard. There are 31 towns in Berkshire County, and 18 of them are in South County. And this man is the municipal attorney for 9 municipalities, and it used to be a few more. I don't know that there's nobody that knows more, but I do know that he knows more than most. Jeremia Pollard, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for the kind words.
My pleasure, and I sincerely mean it. So we're going to try to tell folks how municipal government works in the remaining 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. No pressure.
Yeah. No.
So let's use a couple of hypotheticals.
Sure.
Okay. Let's say there's somebody who sees something going on in his town. I don't know, highway work or something happening in his neighborhood, or he reads that there's a proposed development, or any one of a number that cause him to want to go to his government. And here's the key word: effectively let the government know how he feels about this issue.
That's a great question, and my answer would be to approach the right department first. So let's say, for example, because it's the most common piece, and you hear it a lot at town meetings, which roads are we paving, or my road's filled with potholes, for example. So that would be the DPW, and you try to get an audience with the super or whomever and talk to them about your issues. That always doesn't end in a satisfactory result. And then you always have, and especially in the towns that are governed with a select board, you always have the option to go before the select board. That's kind of the executive brain of the town, right? So you can always ask to be on an agenda, but the first course would be to start with the person who's designated to deal with that, who has, their purview, so to speak.
Do you mean a select board member might have a portfolio?
No, what I meant is to go to whomever it is, that department. So if it's highway, you go to the superintendent. If you have an issue that you think is a public safety issue, go to the police chief. That's the first point of contact. You're not limited to that. If you don't get a response that's satisfactory, you go to the select board. I think one thing that's important for municipal government that's unique to towns in New England is that every person who lives in a town is a legislator. Every taxpayer is it's a pure form of democracy. You are a legislator at town meeting. You show up at town meeting.
I'm just going to interrupt you a minute and say the following. I was at a town meeting, and I stood up. There was another kerfuffle. It's been kerfuffle month. And I stood up at the town meeting, and I said, right over there is the select board. That is your executive, like the President of the United States. That got a very big laugh, but it was correct in the abstract. And you, all of you sitting out here, you're Congress. Now that's what Jeremiah means, and I want you to just stop right there.
Sure.
And talk about what does it mean that we are the legislators in our town? What does that mean we get to do?
Sure. If you're a resident of a town, not a property owner, a resident of the town, you are a voter in the town. You are the legislator. So town meeting, when it convenes, most towns have a quorum of the residents that need to be there to take action. And so that is the voting body of a town. That's where it was born. This is the oldest form of democracy in the United States. Town legislators, residents, members of the public have the ability to put items on town meeting warrants that are legal. They have to be legal articles, but I think it's General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 10, or I might be misciting it but off the top of my head, but you only need for an annual town meeting 10.
Right. It's called the power of 10.
Yeah, you only need 10 voters to put an item on a town meeting warrant, which comes as a surprise to some people. They don't realize that can come from the actual voters themselves, the residents. And there's other ways articles can come onto a town meeting warrant. The planning board has the ability to put items that's within their town planning purview on the warrant. The select board approves its warrant, but any items that residents want can be put on that warrant.
And actually can't be stopped. If you properly prepare your petition and you get your 10 lawful signatures, that is 10 voting residents, and you submit it to select board?
It's the clerk.
To the clerk.
The clerk.
And you submit it to the clerk of the town, then it's automatically on. You can't be stopped. And I just want to accentuate how much power we have as voters and as residents. And you mentioned something else. Expand on this. You can go to the select board meeting and you can bring up your issue, but under what circumstances? So
the select board meeting's a bit more complicated. A select board meeting, you have to be asked to be put on the agenda. The chair creates the agenda of the select board. They don't have to put every item that people request for there to be on. Typically in towns there is a period of public comment. If items haven't been put on that people have asked to be put on, that is a time to say, look, I've asked that this be put on, and address it in public.
And isn't that usually at the very beginning or the very end of a meeting?
Usually at the end of the meeting. Yeah.
At the end of the meeting.
There are certain items that go before select boards that there is mandatory public input, particularly if a select board, and this is often the case in southern Berkshire County towns, where the select board is also the permit granting authority.
Yes.
So those are mandatory public hearings, but all meetings are open. All of them are public except for the exceptions.
What's the difference between, for example, a select board meeting and a public hearing? Alternately, I believe planning board can have a public hearing. Okay, so whether it's planning board or select board, what are the differences between public hearing and meeting?
Public hearing requires that the matter be typically published, sometimes twice in a circulated paper, and it requires public input. Whereas not every item that you deal with it's a misperception that everything a select board does is a public hearing. It's not. So, for example, personnel issues, things of that nature, they're not necessarily items that the public gets to weigh in on. Otherwise,
that might be executive session.
Otherwise, you just the town would be hobbled, so to speak, from doing what it has to do in the normal course of business, whether it's human resources, hiring, things of that nature. The town needs it can't be an open forum for all those things. It just doesn't function that way. But some items, yes, definitely require, and some items, even where public input is not necessarily required, doesn't mean that it's a good idea not to allow it, because that can lead to a sense of disenfranchisement that can really snowball. So,
one of the ways that it snowballs, in my experience, Stockbridge Updates is 6 years old, so I've been carefully covering meetings for 6 years. And the way I see it snowball is if the public is prevented from weighing in, they say, no transparency, what are they hiding? And they start looking for something nefarious. Does that happen in other towns?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Something as innocent as running out of time can be perceived as something is being hidden because debate is cut off. But there is the chair performs the duty, sometimes the undesirable duty. Some chairs like it of limiting or regulating public debate, so that you have to get a meeting over with. It can't be. I remember. I'll give you an example. I had a special permit hearing where it was definitely. We all knew it was going to end up in litigation, and we'd been with a ZBA, and we'd been in the hearing for probably over 3 hours.
CBA is Zoning Board of
Zoning
Appeals.
Board of Appeals. Sorry, I shouldn't do
That's okay.
acronyms. So, and it was just going on. And I remember saying to the appellant, I said, you have the right to make your case in this hearing. You've done that. And now you're not doing that anymore. You're punishing everyone for the determination that the building inspector made. Because we've been here for 3+ hours, and the repetition wasn't twice or 3 times. We were getting 4 or 5 times, and rebutting what had been rebutted with the same rebuttal.
Yeah.
So sooner or later, a meeting has to go forward. It's why you often hear moderators at a town meeting say, we've really been over this article. If anyone else is going to speak, I'd like to hear. If it's something you've already heard,
right,
don't do it.
That's right.
Of course, sometimes that happens anyways because people just have to say it. And the moderators we have great moderators. All my towns have great moderators. I'm very lucky to have excellent moderators, and they do a great job of it. They're all great. My current moderators move meetings along. They let people talk, and they take a long time. The town meetings take a long time, but you get from A to Z, and it's the chair is the moderator at a public meeting.
I tell you, I believe Stockbridge holds the record. Our regular moderator, fellow that's been our moderator for 47 years and knows what he's doing, was sick in hospital, and there was someone not quite as experienced, and it was 8.5 hours, and at one point a man, God bless him, who had stayed there the entire meeting, stood up and said, "I have a question." And this moderator said, "Yes, what?" And he said, "Are you serving dinner?" I think Stockbridge, that year, I think Stockbridge held the record for the longest ever select board meeting.
Oh, boy.
Town meeting, sorry.
Was that 1 day or 2 days?
It was 8.5 hours 1 day.
1 day. Wow.
Yeah, and you know, whatever else you could say about that moderator, and some people said some pretty negative things, but I thought to myself, he remained on his feet for 8.5 hours. That's you get something for that.
Right. Well, it was done in one meeting. There's something to be said for that. Yeah. I've had plenty of them come back.
All right, let's try another hypothetical.
Sure.
Okay, so things happen in town government. You don't understand. How did that happen? You didn't see the meeting. You don't know. You read in the paper the result. Something is now lost. Somebody now got fired. Somebody now got hired. And you think, how did that happen? So how do processes go on the government side, not the political side? Town office.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, it's a broad spectrum you've covered with that. Not everything is going to be done in a process that's followed by the public, particularly with personnel issues. Definitely with regard to litigation issues. The towns need to. There are instances where the towns need to convene outside of the public eye. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a perfect example. If the town's buying property, you can't hold a public hearing about how much you're going to offer for the property. You would be coming into the negotiation in a compromised position.
Correct.
If you were an open book. So there's one of the standard examples for executive session where you meet outside of the public eye, and there's a lot more of those examples, and a lot of times that can you see that, letters to the editor, why did the town buy this property, and why wasn't it done in a public session, things of that nature. But the town still it's a municipal corporation and does municipal corporate business.
That's right. Now let me think about that. How much? All right, so you're going to go into executive session, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that could be about a personnel matter. That could be about a contractual matter.
Yep.
That could be about negotiating salary.
Sure.
That could be about purchasing land. Okay. Now, you're not going to tell details. That would be counterproductive. That would be maybe unkind to the town or to the employees in a negotiating thing or in a land purchase. But in the announcement of the executive session, how much information are you owed?
Well, that's a tough question because remember that going into an executive session is an option. So that is the personnel is one of the unique pieces of executive session. Because even though you can go into an executive session, you do not have to. Uh-huh. It can be done in the public. And the notice that goes to, you're required to do 48 hours notice to anyone who is an employee that you're going in an executive session with. And you do have to cite the exception as to why you're going in there. You're not required to lay out the whole case. It's not, and it doesn't need to be specifically detailed as to what's going to be discussed in there, obviously, or you defeat the purpose of going into an executive session. Yeah. But an employee has as the stakeholder, as the person who is being talked about, has the right to make that hearing public.
Ah, yes.
So the employee can always say, I want this done in public. The other items, like there's an exception in the executive session to talk about security measures, right? Mm-hmm. No one can make the select board go into an open session to talk about that or about real estate pricing or things of that nature. An employee has the right to make it a public hearing.
Right, so some things are to the benefit, a clear benefit to the municipality for it to be a private meeting.
Sure,
and that's executive session. Yeah. And then employee, there are two participants, the employer and the employee, and each has rights.
They do. Who it benefits is up for debate. I've been a municipal lawyer for over 20 years, and people have just said, well, if you want to go into an executive session, I'm going to go into an open session. Whether that benefited them is up to debate, and in many instances, I would posit that it did not.
Yeah, that it doesn't.
And but there was just a reaction to say, I'm not going to do it the way you want to do it. But because in the commercial world, personnel decisions and those discussions are not done in the public.
Yeah.
We have the option to possibly do them that way in municipal setting, but the employee they hold the key, and they can make it a public hearing if they want to for whatever reasons they want.
They always say what a politician that just get the potholes filled. I mean, what, in your experience, nine municipalities, 20 years, and a broad difference in those municipalities, location and otherwise. What's the common thread? What's the most important thing to the people? What's the most important thing to the elected officials? What's the most important thing to the administrative staff?
Yeah, you're probably going to get a lawyer's answer on that one.
Okay.
It really depends. It depends on the timing. It depends on the need of the municipality. First and foremost, yes, we're a functional town or city, and which I've worked for as well. It's hard enough to fill the potholes. It's hard enough to get the roads paved with any superintendent of roads or streets is going to tell you there's not enough money to do it. And you're going to make it's a balancing act of who you're going to make, how few people are you going to disappoint when you pave, right? Because it's just never enough. But there's a lot more to what we're dealing with than just paving streets and making sure that the buildings and the bridges are up to snuff. It's we've recently had this dump thing that tore the towns apart and a community apart, and not a single person in any of these towns wanted a dump in Berkshire County.
Of course. And you're talking about PCB storage.
The PCB storage, yeah. I'll call it a dump because that's what it is.
It's a dump.
That's I mention it because what the towns, and I've said this at town meeting, and I've said this, and I'll say it again. There was a misperception that the town had an ability to do something about that. They postured that as a circular permit to deprive the town of an ability to do anything, and which I'm going to call it what it is, because that is exactly what it is. And any perception that there was it was voluntary, I would say is an illusion. It was going to happen no matter what. It's just how bad it was going to be.
Yeah.
So, that is, but the town, it needs to be addressed at the town, and there have been a lot of individuals, and we know who they are, who have stepped up and maybe had an impact on that through the town process, because whether it's the boards of health, the select boards, or a combination thereof, they're getting a place at the table because they're just not accepting that.
Right. They absolutely didn't accept it. But here's what I find interesting. And I'm even going to relate it to a national event right now. And that is politicians, administrators, the hired staff, and the elected officials of whatever, municipality, state, federal, have a kind of idea that the public will not persist. I know one administrator who has a 2-week rule. He doesn't deal with an issue. He waits 2 weeks. If it's still there in 2 weeks, he thinks, whoops, maybe he has to do something. Okay, but here, that's mildly interesting. And maybe that's expected, that the public will give up and go away or whatever. There are issues that sustain. There are issues that do not go away. And in my opinion, I'm going to ask you in a minute, those issues move mountains. And one is that the issue of the PCB dump in Lee, Massachusetts, without public input, or without public input that was listened to and respected, has been a 5-year issue to my knowledge. That's not going away in 2 weeks. I relate it, very different, folks, but I relate it to the Epstein matter on the federal level. It just won't go away. People are not giving up. They want to see who's to blame, what happened, who struck John. They want to see the Epstein files. The people don't go away, and you shouldn't, folks. And this series is going to be to show you how to stick, to show you how to be respectful of the process, understand the process, and be effective. I'm so glad you were with me today. I am so delighted.
Pleasure. It's great talking to you.
I'm just so delighted. And next, Jeremia will come back. I'm so excited. And with him will be Bob Jones, a select board member in Lee, and he will talk about the rules and how to be an effective citizen and so forth from the select board standard. So we'll have municipal council, we'll have a select board representative, we'll have a representative of administration in one of the towns. And we're going to walk through how you can be effective and involved, and I hope you are. Thank you so much.